Hello and welcome to this special episode of the Mediate podcast. We're coming quite close to the end of the series now. Actually, we've only got a few episodes left. The only things we really need to do are the final Mediate episodes. But before we do that, we're all getting together to do our favourite thing on the podcast, which is to change scores for things that we've already reviewed. So I guess this is Retcon 2. And first Retcon we did, it was a while ago now, but that was about 6 hours long, easily our longest podcast to date.
If there's anything, our myriad fans have been saying is like, come on, Media Crew, Retcon, the original, just wasn't enough. Retcon, we need more.
This one's going to be 12 hours long.
We'll be letting them down a little bit, though, because there's just no way it's going to be 6 hours long. I think we made a conscious effort before to say, all right, one sentence, two, I guess. And then for some things later on in the podcast that we hadn't really stuck numbers on for the first time around, we could have a few more minutes. But I think until then, maybe we should just get started on 2016.
Great. Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So 2016, which was the first year that we ever did on the podcast, it was Tony's year. He picked VA11 Hall A and he gave it a 10.
True.
Are you going to stick with that?
Yeah, I think I've kind of said everything I want to say about VA11 Hall A, so...
About time.
It's definitely still great.
Harry, you gave it a 5.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to raise it to a 6.
That's such a twist.
I haven't replayed it. Don't think I ever will. But the simple reason is that I like anime now. So the things that I had an issue with were things I had an issue with about anime. But I've come to terms with these things.
You've been worn down.
So yeah, 6.
Great. And you, Johnny, you also gave it a 6 as well.
Yeah, sticking with 6.
Great. I think I'll probably lower my score down to...
No.
Sorry, Tony, I think I'm going to have to lower it down to a 6 as well. It's definitely on the side of being a good game rather than an average one, but I don't think it stuck with me quite in the same way that I felt like it would at the time, especially since we've done other things on the podcast.
And you gave it an 8 before, right?
I did give it an 8 before, yeah. So the old total was 29, almost in the 30 club.
It's gone down.
Yeah, it has gone down by 1 point, though. And I think that's been compensated by the fact that Harry raised his by a point as well. So it's stayed pretty constant. And then the film that you picked, Tony, was Your Name. So you gave it a 9. Are you going to stick with that?
Yes.
Okay. And think that, Harry, you gave it an 8, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to raise this to a 9. I have watched this film a couple of times since, and I like it more. It's Katie's favourite film. And yeah, if you listen to my original review, I think a lot of what I said stands up pretty much. It's one of those kind of time travel love story things that is a niche that really appeals to me. And yeah, I just think it's a really strong film.
Great. Jonathan, you gave it a 7?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with 7. It's a high 7, but I think I'm sticking with 7.
Yeah, I had the exact same thing where for me it's also a very high 7, borderline 8, but there's something I think it doesn't quite do for me. I think I'm a lot keener on the second half of the film when the stakes really, really increase. It's not just a body swap film, but I think I will stick with a 7. I definitely prefer the Ghibli side of anime, and this unfortunately isn't that. So again, the old total for this was 31. It's now increased by 1 point, so it's now 32, and that has come from Harry raising his score by 1 point. So that was 2016. 2015 was Harry's first year. The game that he picked was Her Story. And we'll start off with Tony again. So you gave it a 6, Tony. Do you think you'll stick with that?
Yeah, I stand by a 6.
Mm-hmm. And Harry, you gave it an 8?
Yep, staying an 8.
Jonathan?
Staying a 7.
And me definitely staying a 10. It's one of my favourite games to date, and that hasn't changed at all. So still 31 as the old total, and it's now the new one as well. And the film you also picked, Harry, was John Wick. Tony, you gave it an 8.
You know what? I will actually increase this one. This is one of the few Retcon 2 things I've done my homework for and rewatched, and it's better than I even remember it being. I'll give it a 9. Why not?
I think I felt that coming as well. I know you're a big fan of that film. I was surprised when I saw that you'd given it an 8. I felt like you were going to give it a 9. And Harry, you gave it a 7. Are you going to stick with that?
Well, I did say it's the best 7 out of 10 ever made, but I might raise it to an 8 just because
So I make it the worst 8 out of 10.
That does
Yeah,
make it the
it
worst
probably
8 out
is
of
the
10,
worst
surely.
out of 10 because it's not that good, but I also love it. So yeah, I'll give it an 8.
Great. And Jonathan, you're on a 6.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with the 6.
And I think that I might. Oh no, I'll keep it at a 5.
Fine.
I think it is an extremely. I feel bad saying it's an extremely average film because I think it is a little bit better than that. But I'll always compare John Wick to other films in a similar genre, other films from say Asian cinema, for instance, that I just think does the combat and the choreography with a lot more style and a lot more glamour than John Wick. So I'll always have that one, I think, a little bit worse. But the good news is that it has gone by a couple of points. It was originally on 26 and it's now on 28. So I think Tony and Harry's increase really drove that score up a little bit.
Are you doing the episode totals as well? So that was 59, and 2016 was 60 in total.
Okay, I can do that. 2014 was Jonathan's first year. His game was Tales from the Borderlands, and this was the year that was a very, very consistently solid rating. We all gave it 8, so I'm curious to see if any of us have changed that. Tony, would you?
You know, I think 8 is fair.
And Harry?
Yeah, I might lower it to a 7.
Oh, it's funny that it's all 8s.
See, I know it's funny, but I don't think I'll ever play it again as much as I thought I would, and I think that apprehension means I should lower it. And I like that I've changed very much all my scores. So.
Jonathan, you had it as an 8 as well.
Yeah, I'll be sticking with an 8. I think that's fair.
And I think I will too.
No,
I had a lot of fun with this game. So it's gone down by 1 point because of Harry. It was originally on 32, it's now on 31. The film that you picked, Jonathan, was the Grand Budapest Hotel, and Tony, with the lowest score there, you gave it a 7. Are you going to stick with that?
I haven't rewatched it, even though it's been 4 years, so I can't change my score, even though I want to.
Harry, you gave it an 8. Is that going up, down, staying the same?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's going up to a 9. I've seen a lot more of Wes Anderson's films, and the things that didn't work for me the first time were definitely like because I was watching it on a dodgy website on my own, and I didn't know what the whole aspect ratio thing was. I didn't really get the tone. But yeah, I've seen it a few times since, and I've enjoyed it more each time. So I think it's a good 9.
And Jonathan, I feel like I don't even have to ask you. Staying as a 10, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I could increase it, I would. But that's not how scores out of 10 work.
Yeah, and I'll be sticking with a 9 for sure. And because of Harry's increase by 1, it's now at 35 when it used to be at 34, meaning that the overall year comes to a really high 66, which is the best one of the series so far from the 3 years that we've done. Now, next one was a bit of a special year because the picks weren't done by any of us four. It was actually a guest that we had. So we had Lawrence on the podcast, and the game that he picked was BioShock Infinite for 2013. Tony, you gave that a 6. Do you think you'll stay with that?
No, I think there's a reason we're not on speaking terms with Lawrence, and it's because he made us play this game and watch this film. So I'm going to lower this to a 3. BioShock Infinite.
Whoa!
The only thing that sticks in my
wow.
head about it is how boring it is. It's just so like stock standard. I don't care about BioShock Infinite. I have not thought about it since the last time you were like, Tony, what do you think about BioShock Infinite in Retcon? That means it's bad.
But why the drop?
I just the only thing I remember about it is how boring the setting is. That's the only like sticking point in my head, and the fact that there was a big kerfuffle about the marketing because they made the lead female have exposed cleavage in the cover art or whatever. I'm like, that's not a good sign. There's no positive memories of BioShock Infinite.
Fair enough. Harry, you gave it an 8. Do you think you'll be staying with that?
No, I'm going to lower it to a 7. Last time we talked about it on the podcast, I think I was going to lower it, and then I had played the DLC, which linked to the original BioShock that I really enjoyed.
That's cheating. Lawrence didn't pick that.
It's got too many problems to stay an 8. So it's probably quite a low 7 now. But yeah, 7.
And Jonathan, with you gave it an 8 too. Will that be going down like the other two?
I think it's going to stay an 8. I think, although I haven't really revisited it since sort of playing through for, I mean, just the first time really, but it still, I don't know, still holds up pretty well in my memory.
I don't think I'll be changing my score. I think I'm quite happy with a 6 too. contrary to Tony, I think one of the best things about the game is the setting. I love the world that it creates. It's just narratively, I think it falls flat, especially towards the end, and
Yeah.
I think it has pacing issues a lot. I definitely do feel like it outstays its welcome a bit too long, but it has some positives, so I'll keep it at a 6. Oh yeah, I thought I'd forgotten that completely. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah. So because of Tony's pretty sharp drop and Harry lowering it by 1, it's now gone from 28 to 24.
Oh.
Yeah, it's been the biggest decrease we've had so far. I don't think Lawrence would be too happy. God, I can't wait to see what happens with the Wolf of Wall Street because we've got some very low scorers here. Tony, you've given it a 2. Is that going down?
I can't believe I was that generous to this dog film. Oh, that's a nothing film. Oh, let's film this one scene and make it 3 hours long. Yeah, we're cool. Fuck off. No, that's my piece.
1 out of 10 then.
I don't like that film. I think it's now become like a cornerstone of even if I were to rewatch Wolf of Wall Street and discover that I actually really liked it, I'd be like, no, I'm committed too much. I'm in too deep at this point. I have to hate this film forever. It's bad.
It's my brand now.
Well, how about you, Harry? We went from a 2 to a 1, and you're on a 6. Is it going anywhere?
I think I'll raise it to a 7.
Ooh.
But a very low 7. And that might just be because I want to talk about it.
I'm going to go beast mode, Harry.
I don't know. I've seen more Scorsese's films, and Goodfellas has become my favorite film now. And it's. I also love Terrence Winter, who wrote some of the best Sopranos episodes. Who wrote this film. So I don't know why I don't absolutely love it. I think a lot of the criticisms I said in that podcast probably still stand up. But I also think I probably just the elements that it shares with Goodfellas, like the way it is just like crack, and just moves really fast. I still appreciate those kind of parts of it. So yeah, I'll raise it to maybe the lowest 7 I could ever give anything.
And how about you, Jonathan? You gave it a 5. If anything, I could see this going down, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I think it is going to go down to a 4 because I don't think.
Thank you, John.
Because 5 would be perfectly balanced, and I don't think this was perfectly balanced. I think I have more dislike than likes for this film. Although it's just one of those I've just kind of tried to forget since watching it. Just remember it wasn't that fun.
Well, I think I'll probably join Harry on that 7, and I'll keep my score because recently I rewatched the last half of the film with my sister, and at that point there is you definitely get that sense of the decline of this guy, and I think that's when the film really shines through, and it isn't bathed in the excess that it has for quite a big chunk of the film, especially towards the start and to around the midpoint. So I think that made me come to appreciate it a little bit more, but it was in danger of going down because, like you, Jonathan and Tony, I definitely think Scorsese's made better work, and this one was disappointing to say the least. But I will say 7 because I still think it's a good piece of work. It's definitely the lowest thing that we've rated on the podcast so far, and I really want to see if that changes. I'm looking down to 2006. I see Sonic the Hedgehog, and I think, yeah, that's probably the worst thing we've ever reviewed. But The Wolf of Wall Street, I would say, is probably a second. It was originally a 20, and it's now a 19. So I think that says what we have to think about Lawrence's picks for 2013, because the overall total is 43.
Man, R.I.P. Lawrence.
Yeah, I know. 43. I mean, that's so much lower than anything else that we've done so far. Poor year. Anyway, Tony, we have your next year, 2012. The game that you picked was FTL, Faster Than Light. You gave it a 9. How do you feel about that?
I'll stick with 9. FTL's still good.
Yeah. Harry, a 7?
Sticking with a 7. I will just quickly say you should play Into the Breach because it's a better game. But yeah, 7.
Jonathan, a 7?
Yeah, sticking with 7.
And I think I'll lower it down to a 6. I don't know why I started. I was about to say I'll raise it down to a 6, but I meant to say lower. The fact that I never actually officially completed it, I played a couple of hours on it, but I never was able to complete that final boss, and I never felt compelled to. I think says how I feel about the game, that I didn't really get invested in it. I didn't really feel a need to get that accomplishment from completing it. So I think it is going to have to drop by a point. And because of that, it's gone from 30 down to 29.
Sad. I'll raise it to a 10.
You know what I would like to see you raise to a 10?
Looper.
Yeah, Looper.
Why? I think the only reason I picked Looper for the podcast was because it was a film I had seen that came out that year. And I was like, oh, I guess I'll do this.
Does that mean it's going down then?
Yeah, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Like, it's got a cool gimmick. I don't know. I bet there's a better film that came out that year, and I'm just too much of a hack at my job as a reviewer to know what it is.
Well, Tony, I think the thing is there were probably many good films that came out in 2012, but probably none that you'll really like.
That's true.
So as
That's true.
what is it you often say, Harry? A sci-fi, a low sci-fi concept idea or something like Limitless.
Nah, it's like a high concept idea that is ultimately just like an action film, and it's not that good.
The secret recipe for being a good film, in my eyes, is you have to own people. You have to show people getting owned.
Yeah, people the protagonist has to be like an epic guy that owns.
He has to go from being like a low T beta to getting on the Sigma grind set, and that is the only character arc. That's sort of my version of the hero's journey, you know.
It's what Joseph Campbell wrote about.
That's what makes us. That's what makes this film worth it as a genre, as a medium.
Harry, you gave it a 7. Staying with it?
Yeah, sticking with a 7. I do just want to say that in Johnny's review of Lupe, he says one of my favourite things, which is that Emily Blunt has a man on call. that I don't know why him saying that has stuck in my mind so long, but I love that moment.
How about you, Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm sticking with the 7. I'm glad I've seen this film.
Yeah, me too. And I think I'll keep it as a 7. It was a film my mum really, really wanted me to watch because she saw it in cinema and she thought it was very good. And I do like the concept quite a lot of sending people through time to be assassinated in different periods. There's no trace of them in other periods. I think it is very, very interesting, and it is well explored. It does fall through in certain areas, especially with child performances.
I forgot. Sonny Jim.
Yeah, well, we all know Sonny Jim's greatest role to date is in Twin Peaks: The Return, but in Looper, he hadn't really found his voice.
It was before we knew who Ryan Johnson was, really. Before he kind of made The Last Jedi. Good ending as well. We're just reviewing Looper.
Yeah, so that was originally a 28, and it's now gone down to 27 because Tony, I think, decreased it by 1. But that means that overall the year is 56, which is pretty solid. It's not too bad. Definitely better years, I would say, like the one we have coming, which is 2011. This is Harry's second year. He picked maybe one of the best games that we've played on the podcast. Probably he would say his favourite. Yeah, I know. I know there's no question about it for you. Portal 2. Tony, you gave it a 10. You going to stay with that?
It deserves to be a 10. It deserves for all of us to give it a 10 so we can break the curse that a witch put on us 1,000 years ago. We're free.
Harry, staying at a 10?
Do I lower it to a 9 so I can talk about it again and then raise it back to a 10?
No, don't even insinuate that Retcon 3 will exist.
It's obviously a 10.
And how about you, Jonathan?
Well, now it comes to the pressure of me. I think it's still a 9.
Oh!
The curse continues.
Yeah, and I've said it before, and I am going to do it now. I'm going to drop it down to a 9. I'm sorry, Harry.
This is actually sad.
I know. We're even further away from the dream.
Yeah, it was... I'm not too sure why it's a 9. I just think that when I first played the game, I loved it. And then I replayed it again with a friend since, and there was something about the sense of humour and some of the puzzles that just didn't quite land for me the second time through. It didn't have that. It didn't feel like a game that had a lot of replayability value for me in particular. So I think that's why I'm dropping it down by 1 point. And also the other thing is that I'm always comparing these things in hindsight to other things that I've played in the future. I've played games that I love since then that I wouldn't have played at the time. So my standard for games has obviously changed and gone higher a little bit, so I'll be a bit tougher on certain games when maybe I ought not to have been. But it means that this game has gone down by 1 point from 39, an extremely, extremely high 39, down to a 38. This was actually the first year that we had two games rather than a film and a game. Harry's other pick was To the Moon. Tony, you gave it a 9.
Yeah.
And how about you, Harry? You gave it a 9 as well.
Yeah, I'm keeping it as a 9 for sure.
Okay. And I do remember you disliking it this much, Jonathan. You gave it a 3.
Yeah, so looking back, I think it's more just because I got wound up by everyone liking it so much, and I found it so average with bits that irritated me. But as time has gone by, I've forgotten the bits that irritated me, and so I just think that I'm probably just going to give it a 5. I sort of have no strong feelings one way or the other about it, I think is now my feeling.
Yeah, and I think I'll stick with an 8. I think it's a really good game. I don't remember the plots to a fine detail, but I remember towards the end especially the idea of going back through someone's history through, major crossing roads and points in their life while they're basically dying in the present was a really, really moving story. So I'll definitely keep it at an 8. If anything, it would probably go up by 1 point, but that's for Retcon 3. So it was a 29. Now it's gone up by 2 points to a 31, thanks to Jonathan. And this leaves us with, well, our best year so far, 69.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. It's a shame because I think that next year, 2010, which was my first pick on the podcast, is maybe the strongest year that we ever had from my point of view. So my game was Red Dead Redemption. Tony, you gave this an 8. Are you sticking with that?
Yes, I'll stick with an 8.
And Harry, you gave it a 9.
Yeah, I think a 9 is the correct rating for that.
Jonathan, you gave it a 4.
Yeah, I think a 4 is the correct rating for that game.
And I'm going to raise it to a 10 because I think that's the correct rating to that game. I gave it a 10 when we first reviewed it, then dropped it to a 9 for Retcon, and now I'm raising it back up to a 10 because I replayed it, and I also have the contrast between the second game, which I wasn't as keen on gameplay wise, and I think this game really, really nailed gameplay aspects that I think are done in a simpler way with this title. I think especially it being the first one, whereas I think Red Dead 2 is a bit too complicated and convoluted at times. I think this game just strips that back a little bit, which I much prefer. And it's just got a fantastic story as well, I find. So it has gone up by 1 point because of me for that.
You love all the racist caricatures.
If you look past that, if you look past that.
I'm joking. Oh.
And the film I picked was Inception. Tony, you gave this a 9.
Yeah, I don't remember why. That sounds mean. I'll give it a 7. If I were to watch it and look at it, I'd be like, that's impressive, but it doesn't have like flair. It doesn't have like style. It's just kind of it's kind of like just like boilerplate cool. What if there was a building upside down?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think this was a film that we all watched and really enjoyed, and then Jonathan said, "Is it really that good?" And then we all sort of agreed with him in the years to come. So Harry, you gave it a 10. Are you decreasing that?
I like Inception less and less as I get older, but I still like it enough to give it a 10. Ask me again in like 3 or 4 years, it probably won't be. But for now, the last retcon we ever do, I'm going to give it a 10. The Prestige is better though.
True.
Debatable. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think I'll stick with an 8, though it's potentially a low 8.
All right, and I'll stick with a 9. I think you gave it a 10 originally, but I did drop it down to 9, and I think a 9's quite fair, so I'll stay with that. Which means that the only way it's changed is Tony dropping it by 2, so it was on 36, it's now on 34, and this means that this year ends with a really high 65, and I'm just looking at the scores. If Jonathan hadn't given Red Dead a 4, if he'd actually liked it as much as us, it would probably be maybe the best year that we did on the main series, so that's a bit of a shame, but oh well. 2009, Jonathan, that was your second year. The game that you picked was Red Faction Guerrilla. Tony, you gave that a 7.
Yeah, I'll give it a 6. Yeah, as much as it's an alright game with questionable story elements, the only thing that sticks in my mind about it is, God, I want someone to look at Red Faction Guerrilla and then go make a better game inspired by it that isn't Red Faction Armageddon, obviously.
Harry, 6.
I'll keep it as a 6, but I just want to say I completely agree with Tony. And it's it's the podcast we lost as well. To hear our in-depth thoughts, you have to have been in the room when we were recording.
Jonathan, an 8.
I'm gonna go with my heart and increase it to a 9. I think it's one of those few games that I will just pop back in and play it if I want to relax. I'll just go and be in that world for a bit, blow up a few buildings, play a few story missions. So I know objectively it's close to that 6, but like in my heart, and that's what I'm going to rate this one using. I mean, potentially a 10, but I'm going to stick to a 9.
Well, that's brave. I respect that.
Yeah, I respect that as well. I'd say that's what counts. How it stays with you emotionally. And I'll be honest, there have definitely been times where I've been playing on the Xbox, and I've seen who's online, and then all these years later you'll still be playing Red Faction Guerrilla every now and then, and I think that goes a long way. And I'll probably keep it at a 6 as well. Again, similar to Bioshock Infinite, there's definitely aspects of it that I think are fairly strong. It is fun to blow up buildings. I'll give it that. But again, I think my biggest criticism was that storyline-wise, it was very black and white, and there wasn't a lot of, I guess, nuance, for lack of a better word. It was just pretty standard character motivations and personalities, and it was just, yeah, very, very black and white. There wasn't a lot of gray area when it comes to the central conflict of the game, which I thought was a bit weaker. And sorry, no, it's still at 27, which is what it was before, because yeah, it was counted by one person raising theirs by 1 point and one person going down by 1. Okay, no problem. So then the film that you picked, Jonathan, was Inglourious Bastard, which I think he probably maybe regretted picking, which we'll hear about that in a second. First of all, Tony, you gave that a 5. Are you gonna keep it at a 5?
Yeah, kind of just get no emotional response from trying to remember anything about it. I don't even know if I watched it. I might have just lied.
How about you, Harry? You gave it an 8.
I'm going to raise it to a 9, just because I've watched it a couple of times since. I also think that there's this like bonkers. When we did the original podcast, people were complaining that it didn't like neatly slot together, that the storylines ultimately like they both succeeded, so it didn't really matter. But my favorite element of the film is that they both succeed, so the Nazis die twice as hard at the end. Oh, that's a great.
And how about you, Jonathan? You gave it a 5.
Yeah, I think I'll stick with a 5. I haven't rewatched it since and haven't really thought much of it since. So
Yeah, and I think going off with that, I'll probably stick with an 8 as well. It's a strong film. I'll always struggle to not compare other directors' films together. So, I mean, Tarantino's had a strong career. I love so many of his films. I rate them extremely highly. And on its own, Inglourious Basterds is a very, very great film. But I think in comparison to other films, I just expect more from him. But it has increased by 1 point. It was on 26, now 27, because Harry went up by 1 point for his score, which means that overall the year was 54, which is again is all right, not too bad. Now we'll go on to 2008. Tony, this was your third year, I think. The game that you picked was Mirror's Edge, and you gave it an 8. Are you going to stay with that?
I think I will increase Mirror's Edge to a 9. You know, the unique visual style is just something that I sort of occasionally think about, remember fondly, and being like, yeah, that's very striking.
And how about you, Harry? You gave this.
I'm going to keep it as a 6.
And Jonathan, 5?
yeah, I'm going to keep it as a 5.
And I'm going to keep mine as an 8, but if anything, similarly to Tony, it would probably go up for the exact reasons he said. I realise that it has problems. I mean, in a world where we just get bombarded with first-person shooters and very samey kind of games quite often, it's very easy to miss, if you're not looking in the right places, games that have a bit more of an original angle. And I think this game does that. I don't really play any. I don't think I've ever played a console game which is essentially free running or parkour, and then to give it a narrative and to make it conflicted at times in its story, I think really works. I think they go hand in hand together quite well. So, And because of Tony's increase, he increased by 1. It's now at a 28 when it was a 27. The film that you picked this year, Tony, was Ponyo, and you gave it a 10. Are you going to stay with that?
Part of me, I have half a mind to lower it because it is no longer my favourite. I don't think it's my favourite Ghibli film. And at one point it was, but fuck it, I'll keep it at 10. Who cares? He's a fish. He's cool. And it has acts. I'll stand by that.
And how about you, Harry? Staying with a 5?
Oh god, no, definitely not. So I'm going to raise this to a very high 7.
Yes.
And this is definitely one that I'm going to give myself more than the sentence. Because I think what unlocked Ponyo for me was watching My Neighbor Totoro, which I really enjoyed. And when I'm thinking about it, I was like, well, that film was... My Neighbor Totoro is also nothing. Like, it's the same criticism I had of Ponyo. I think I was just in the mood for it, and I wanted to listen to like the music and the vibe, and also I had my anime redemption arc, and then rewatching Ponyo in like, I guess what was me actually wanting to watch it and not just being in the room with you guys while it was on, and like not really wanting to be watching it. You know, I vibed with it more. I like the music, the visual style of it. I still think it's like everything I said about it kind of being quite nothingy and like not really having like those like plot beats like a Pixar or a Disney film would are true, but it's not really going for that, and I didn't really see that before. I think when we did the podcast before, I was again just like in a bad mood, so I will fully apologize to Tony for being annoying that episode, and would happily up my score and admit that Ponyo is a good film, and it isn't just nothing.
And Jonathan, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that.
And I gave it a 6. I think I'll stay with a 6, but because Harry increased it by a couple of points, it's gone up to 30 from 28, which means that overall the year is a 58, which is pretty good, not bad. Now, Harry, you come to a really, really great year. The game that you picked was Call of Duty 4. Tony, you gave that a 9.
I'll drop that to an 8, but not for any particular reason other than I've played other things that are better than it.
Harry, a 9?
I'm going to drop it to an 8, just because I regret picking it and should have picked Super Mario Galaxy or Halo 3, which I think were stronger games that came out that year. Also the fact that I thought it was really, like the campaign was what we were reviewing, and that was really strong. But I also was factoring in the nostalgia of playing the multiplayer, and I think I'm going to take that away and just review the campaign, which I think is an 8.
Okay, fair enough. And Jonathan, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with a 7.
And I'll stick with an 8 as well. And so that is a 31 from a 33 because of a couple of drops. And the film that Harry picked is quite possibly the best film from my point of view that we reviewed on the podcast. It's There Will Be Blood. Tony, you gave it a 5. Is that changing?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I rewatched this before or after Retcon. Probably before. I don't know if I've ever put this much effort into like trying to like something as There Will Be Blood. And normally I put zero effort in, so you know, it's not like a crowning achievement or anything. But the fact that I've been like, I want to see what the appeal is, and I'm just like, no, it's just a sad old dude who shouts about oil and is grumpy and unlikable and has that shitty red flare in that one scene. That's the reason. That one filter is losing a point. 4.
You know, whenever I watch the film, Tony, and that shot comes up, I always just think about how much of a problem you have with it, and it always puts a bit of a smile on my face.
Yeah, it does make me think of you.
It's because it's the one it was one offhand complaint I made, and it became a meme of like, that's the reason Tony hates the film. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Yes, it is. That tipped the scale. The end scene is funny. I'll give it that.
Harry, staying with a 10, right? Gotta be.
So I gave it a 10 2 years ago, but I like it twice as much now as I did then. So can I give it like a 20? Because like I feel like every time I watch it, I like it twice as much, or at least a quarter as much. So yeah, it's still a 10. But I feel like if we were to do that podcast again, I could say so many like different things about why I think it's great.
Yeah. Jonathan gave it a 9.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep it there. Possibly if I rewatched it, it would go up, but I need to rewatch it and see.
And I'm definitely keeping it a 10. Similarly to Harry, I think if we did another podcast on it, I would have a lot more to talk about, a lot more questions that I would want to throw into the pool and have a conversation about. It really is just one of those films that stays on your mind, so no doubt there.
We didn't even talk about Bob
Bob
Brady.
Brody and Fred English, JJ Carter. All these obscure characters no one else even thinks about on a daily basis as much as we do.
I hear these names so many times.
Like, we didn't talk about who owns the railroads.
No, we didn't. We didn't talk about Daniel's alias, Mr. Daniel.
Yeah, we didn't go through his villains wiki page.
Right, so there we've run now 33 instead of 34, giving that year 64 in total.
And 2006, really interesting year. Great film, terrible video game. The game that I picked was Sonic the Hedgehog. Tony, you gave this a 3. How do you feel about that?
You know what? I've since discovered that you're actually not allowed to critique any bugs in any video game ever, because it's so hard to literally do anything when it comes to making a video game. The fact that any video game like doesn't explode your console when you press play is like a crowning achievement. And I also respect that the Sonic series continually like does not want to stick to a formula and will throw away every good idea in its past. Be like, no, we got to do something new. We got to risk it all again for no reason. And we got to make a shit game. It's like and they're making another open world Sonic game that they just announced. Like, guys, we do it. It's gonna work this time. Trust me. I've just got to respect that grind. You know, so I've got to give it a 4 out of 10.
I think it's a real testament to that series and the devoted, loyal fans it must have who keep buying every game. And it must, I mean, the original Sonic the Hedgehog game must have been just so great that people are still willing to think, yeah,
It's alright.
yeah, it is just all right. I've played it and it is just an all right game. But I think that the fact that they can keep churning out films that try and reinvent the Sonic wheel every time and just absolutely fail, like turning him into a werewolf, for instance.
What if we had a skateboard though?
It's just, what are they thinking? Yeah. How about you, Harry? You giving it a 2?
I'm keeping it as a 2.
Okay. And Jonathan, as a 2?
Yeah, keeping it as a 2.
And I'll probably keep it as a 3, even though it's a very important game to me. I can't see myself defending it to give it a bigger score. So, yeah, because of Tony's very generous point raise, it's now an 11 when it was a 10 before. Probably the worst thing we've done on the main series. So the film that I picked, conversely, was The Prestige. Really, really high ratings from all 4 of us. Tony, you gave it a 9.
I kind of want to increase it to a 10. You know what? I'll do it. And I'll change it again if we ever do Retcon 3. I'm sowing the seeds now. Yeah, I saw it in like a theatre that had very loud speakers, and I was like, oh, the cool moments and how extra cool. And there was Daniel Krupa of RKG who had turned around and looked at for the entire film, and that was funny.
And you were like, he looks so much like Jeremy Renner.
Exactly.
Harry, I'm surprised to see you've given it a 9. I thought it would be a default 10 for you this.
Yeah, it is a default 10 now. And I think the reason was because at one point I only had 10 out of 10s. And then now I have like 40 or like 45 or something. But yeah, the Prestige I think is better than Inception now, which makes it automatically a 10. And for all the reasons I said before. But I also saw the same screening as Tony. And I can attest to his experience of just looking at Daniel Krupa the whole time.
How about you, Jonathan? An 8.
Yeah, I think I'm sticking with an 8. Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, I think I'm going to raise mine by 1 as well. I'm going to give it a 9. I think 8 is pretty sinful, to be honest, for this film. I have seen it a couple of times since we reviewed it on the podcast, actually, and there is something really rewatchable about this film, and I don't understand why, because it's not a particularly funny film. It's hard for me to put into words, but it's got a really good central conceit, and the performances are good, and its pacing is spot on. It does a really good job keeping you involved until the end of the film, and obviously it's a well crafted movie that we definitely. So I think because we all increased our score by one apart from Johnny, it's now at 37 when it was originally a 34, which yeah definitely makes it one of the highest things that we've done on the podcast. Full stop. And unfortunate because overall the year is 48 points, and that's definitely because Sonic the Hedgehog is just such a shit game. If I'd picked a game as good as the Prestige, yeah, God knows.
If you picked the FIFA that came out that year, it'd be like, oh, it's all right. We'd have given it a 5, and it'd be such a high rated year.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, 2005. Jonathan, you picked Star Wars Battlefront 2 as your game. Tony, you gave that a 7.
I'll stick by a 7. Solid concept, solid execution.
Harry, a 9.
Yeah, I'm sticking with a 9.
Jonathan, also a 9.
Yeah, sticking with a 9.
And I'll be sticking with a 6 as well, which means that it's unchanged at 31. And the film that you picked was Viva Vendetta. Tony, you gave that an 8.
I think it was like a sort of vindictiveness, FIFA vindictiveness, of where I was like, I just like defending films that are just like, yeah, they just made a film at the end of the day. You know, the 3 acts, they're there. The people getting owned happens in good quality amounts. But I think my 8 was a bit emboldened by that sense of vengeance that everyone else just hated it for some reason. So I'll give it a 7. I say everyone. It's Harry.
Yeah, well, Harry gave it a 4, and if anything, that's probably going down. What do you think, Harry?
Yeah, I'm gonna lower it to a 2.
Well, I'm gonna have to increase my score again. No.
It's just one of my least favorite films, I think.
Okay. Is that all you're gonna you gotta say?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just I've said quite a lot about it. It's about the Iraq War.
Okay. And how about you, Johnny? You've given it a 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick to a 7. You know, it has Hugo Weaving in it. I think there's a limit to how badly you can rate something with Hugo Weaving in.
Yeah, okay, I guess that's a good point. And I'll stick with a 5 just because V is the Roman numeral for 5, and I think that's pretty funny. So it was originally 24, gone down by a few. I think mostly because of Harry's chain. Not really much of a surprise there. But overall, the year did pretty well. 52, I think, is fairly reasonable. Now we're going on to a really, really strong year. Tony, you picked 2 really, really solid animated films, the first of which was House Moving Castle, and you gave it a 9.
I totally forgot I picked both of these films. I'm surprised by it. My own taste being alright for once. Yeah, both solid, both good. I'm content with those scores.
Yeah, with the 9?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Harry, you gave it a 7?
Yeah, I think I might gonna raise it to an 8, but qualify that by saying I might actually like it less now than I did when I rated it, and that's just because I've seen all of Miyazaki's films since then, and I kind of appreciate what he does. So compared to his other films, this one is not like amazing, but as like compared to most other films, I think it is better than most films. So I think I'll give it an 8.
Cool. Jonathan, a 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Am I gonna stick with that 7? Because I may drop it to 6. I'll just stick with a 7, I think.
Okay, good choice. Good choice. And I'll definitely be sticking with a 9 for sure. And because Harry raised it by 1, it's now gone to 33 when it used to be 32. That's the new score. And then the other film that you picked, Tony, was The Incredibles. You sound like you're going to stick with the 9 for it.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Harry, also a 9.
Yeah, definitely still on 9.
How about you, Jonathan, with a 7?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the 7.
And I think I'm going to raise mine by 1. I think I'm going to raise it to a 9. I remember when we did the podcast, I was torn between the two. I might have even given it a 9 originally and dropped it. But I think what persuaded me to do that was the fact that Pixar have had such a wide breadth of really, really fantastic animated films, especially early on in their career with Toy Story and Monsters Inc. How could we forget A Bug's Life? What's the Greek again, Tony? What's it called?
Zazunia, I think.
And I think I was just holding it in very high regard against those other films, but by itself, it is just a really, really great superhero film, and I really love it. So I'm go for a 9, which means that it's gone up by 1 point. So it's 34 when it used to be 33, which means overall we had 67, which I think is really probably one of the best years that we did. Looking back at other ratings that we did, it's really excellent. So good job, Tony. Good picks that year. Now we're coming to 2003, and this was my year. I picked 2 films just like Tony did. The first one that I did was Old Boy. Now, Tony, you gave this a 3. Is that changing at all?
You know what? If I were to watch Old Boy, I would be my hatred for the fact that he doesn't eat the guy at the end would rekindle within me. However, this film is benefiting from like a selective memory loss process where I'm only thinking about the cool parts in the film now. I'm like, you know what? That hallway scene, cool. Or he punches some guys, cool. Should have just gone over the fact that he slept with his daughter though. Like, come on. Don't be like a baby about it. Alright, I'll give it a 4.
Cool. Harry, what is this 8 I'm seeing here? This needs to go up, right?
Yeah, it's gone up to a high 9. I reviewed it having only seen it one time, and I've seen it twice since. One of those times being at cinema. Yeah, I just like it a lot more. There's a few like kind of pacing issues that I think prevent it from being a 10. I don't think it's his best film. I think I like The Handmaiden more, but it's fantastic. Yeah, great film.
How about you, Jonathan? You gave it an 8.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick to that. I've not rewatched it since, and haven't really had any reason to change.
And I think I'll stick with a 9 as well. It's a very high 9. If there was going to be a change, it would definitely be a 10. I think the fact that I saw the other films in the thematic trilogy that this movie is a part of just made me have an appreciation for Old Boy even more. So
yeah, me and Ethan have done a second Old Boy podcast since then. We just hid it in like another video.
Yeah. So that's gone up by a couple of points. That's now 30 when it was 28 before. And then the other film that I picked, the other foreign language film, because I think I went through a bit of a stretch with films from different countries that weren't American for a while now. I went for City of God, which Tony gave a 5.
Yeah, I think I'll lower that to a 4.
Oh my god!
Crazy man.
What?
The only thing that I remember about it is that there's the twist where it's like, it's real. I'm like, that's cool, I guess. Doesn't make the film any better or worse.
Okay.
Damn.
Yeah. That is a bit of a damn moment. How about you, Harry? You gave it a 9.
Yeah, I'm raising it to a 10.
Nice.
I definitely should have given it a 10 the first time. I think the only reason I didn't was because I didn't give out as many 10s back then. But yeah, watched it again since. Still as fantastic as it was the first time. Yeah, great, love it.
And Jonathan, no doubt staying as a 10.
Yeah, still a 10. Yeah, comfortably in like my top 4-5 films. So yeah, definitely a 10.
And I'll be staying with a 9.
What's that? What's that film about? I forgot.
What, City of God?
Oh, it's like a gang film, right? Oh, I see. It's crime. I remember now why I don't like it. Okay, I'm back. I'm back in the.
We had this debate about the genre of the film.
Yeah, because I remember being like,
You thought it was a coming of age film.
yeah, that's my take of it. Is it's a slice of life. And that's the feeling I get rather than gangster. And so it was always like a moment where you're like, yeah, it's kind of a gangster, film. Like, oh, true. It was so good. I hadn't noticed it was a genre I hate.
Tony, I remember, gave it a lower score and said the reason that he'd given that score was because Old Boy had put a bad taste in his mouth. It's funny that they're now like the same rate.
Yeah, because Old Boy went
true.
up by 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have recalled Old Boy more fondly than City of God.
Well, it's interesting, you know.
So I'll be staying with a 9 as well. Again, like Old Boy, if it was going to change, it would go up to a 10 for sure. But because of that, it's still a 33 like it was before, because Tony went down by 1, Harry went up by 1. So overall, 63. Pretty damn good year. Okay, 2002. Jonathan, game and a film. Your game was Age of Mythology, which had some interesting scores and some interesting gameplay experiences from us. So Tony, you gave it a 4.
Yeah, I think I think that does accurately reflect my experience with the game. But also, I think I just either didn't put in the necessary amount of effort or am too stupid to understand like strategy games in general of that genre. So I'm gonna just redact my score. Just put a void in.
Oh, you have to give a score, I think, at this point.
Yeah, you come on, Tony.
That's lame. Okay, I'll leave it as a 4 then. But in my heart of hearts, I either should have put in more effort or not commented on it. Like kind of half-assing it and being like, well, I put in like an hour of work, but like I didn't really understand it, so it's lame. It's like, well, that's true. That is literally what happened, and you could make the argument that it should just be easier to understand, but still, I'll leave it as a 4. This is my mark of shame.
And will your score be staying as a 4 as well, Harry?
Well, I have a very similar situation. I think when it comes to everything else in the podcast, I've taken pride in finishing everything and putting a lot of kind of thought and hours into being prepared for the podcast. And this is the one where I just sat down 7 or 8 times and forced myself to keep playing because I just didn't click with it. And I think it's purely because I don't like real time strategy. I like to be able to take my time and I don't like having to like quickly build up units and attack and then you attack too soon, so you're like, okay, I've got to do it again. And I also think that the campaign wasn't the best method of reviewing it, that playing the multiplayer against like a similarly leveled opponent would have been a better way of us kind of getting an experience of playing it. So I think I have to keep it as a 4, even though it is probably higher and my experience of playing it was probably lower. But like Tony, if I can't void, I'll give it a 4.
Jonathan, for an 8?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with an 8. Like it's one of my childhood games that I love, and I think to me it was just a very slow game where you can slowly build things up and sort of do things in your own way. The campaign would have been one of the like earlier things I played as a child, so it was just, I guess, kind of a first thing sort of like that. And there's just quite a few in jokes with it. I like the mythical sort of world. I think objectively the best thing from that kind of series to review would be the Age of Empires 2. The multiplayer of that is probably where the best gameplay is, but I like this world. I enjoy the slightly clunkiness of it all. But yeah, sticking with an 8.
Yeah, and I get that, but I think mine is probably going to go down by a few points. I'm thinking between a 4 and a 3. I think I'll probably give it a 3, to be honest. I feel bad about doing that, but my argument was that I gave it a 7 originally because I was going to give the game a benefit of the doubt. I was trying to imagine how I would feel about it if I'd actually completed the game, but the fact that I didn't, the fact that I had the same issues that Tony and Harry did, where getting into it was difficult, trying to find aspects of it that I could appreciate and really get behind was a bit of a struggle, and overall I didn't progress that far into it. So I feel like my score has to accurately reflect that and not what my impression might have been if I had finished the game. So I am gonna have to go with a 3, I think, which is a bit sad because this means this game's had a drop of 4 points. It started off as a 23, and now it's down to a 19. But on the bright side, you picked a really great film to accompany it, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny, the film that you picked was The Pianist. Tony, you gave this an A. Are you going to stick with an 8?
I will increase it to a 9. I don't know. I think it might just be because I saw either a clip of it recently, and that's tricked my brain into making me think the film was really memorable. But also, I remember it being good. I'll give it a 9.
Yeah, I think my big shock was that you really enjoyed it because we talked about this at the time. You have a bit of a track record of preferring films that obviously leave you feeling more positive than films that kind of just ruin your day, which makes complete sense.
Yeah. And to be fair, I think The Pianist is designed to be, well, not intentionally, but it functions as a bridge point between sad films that make you feel sad so you can cry because fuck you, and kind of having a more hey, the Act 3 is a classic fucking the villain gets owned, type sort of more I guess upbeat sort of note for it to end on, with the fact that it's kind of like a survival story rather than just like, bruh, the Holocaust was so bad, you should be so sad right now. Which, I think it would be very insensitive of me to be like, actually, how could they make a sad Holocaust film that makes me feel sad? I think that would be a very shallow thing of me to think. But that's, thankfully, it has like a more, especially with the thing that I saw was the Nazi that shows up and shows sympathy to him. That's like a kind of thing that like Inglourious Basterds wouldn't have something like that, even though it's a similar like time period film, which makes it sort of, I don't know, be more feel good in a way, which is a weird thing to take away from The Pianist. But that's good. It's good. I liked it.
How about you, Harry? You gave it a 7.
Well, the correct rating for this film is an 8, but I have the rapist reduction rule on, which means it loses a point and gets a 7.
No. I've totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
It's too late for me to re-retcon my score.
How about you, Jonathan? Are you going to stay with a 9?
I think I'm gonna stay with a 9. Yeah.
Is that following the RR method, or is that just it deserves a 9?
It's somewhere between. Yeah, there's. Yeah, I could potentially give it a 10, but because of that, I'm not inclined to. So I feel it's quite a comfortable 9.
I'd say it's quite a comfortable 9 as well. I think Tony kind of hit the nail on the head with what he was saying a second ago with that one character as well. It is very interesting to watch a film that was directed by someone who was alive during this period, and to have one character show up who's obviously on the villainous side in the war, to more decent and kind-hearted than you would expect, and to have that moment where you realise that actually, there is a feel-good aspect to it that makes you think, well, it's similar to Schindler's List. There was probably a few good eggs that didn't agree with the status quo and found their own ways to rebel against it.
Well, it's based off a real person, isn't it?
Yeah. Oscar Schindler definitely was. Oh, in The Pianist?
No, it's in The Pianist. Yeah, that's a genuine story, I'm pretty sure. That character.
Anyway, so this new rating is now 34 because I raised it by 1 when it was 33 before, leaving the year with 53. I think a little bit because Age of Mythology kind of downgraded things a little bit, which is a bit of a shame. But 2001, Harry, this was your year. You picked Halo Combat Evolved. Tony, you gave this game a 10.
Yeah, I think it deserves a 10. I know I'm normally not one to be like this, to have this sort of take, but you kind of do have to factor in the fact that it's like so much of Halo's DNA is in every shooter that succeeded it. I see, that's how those words work. And also it's pretty fun, it's cool. I like the music. Da 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 da. That's actually might only be in Halo 3. I'm a fake fan.
Yeah, it's definitely in Halo. I know that because I sing it all the time as well when me and Harry play Halo Infinite together. So I'm definitely aware of. Speaking of, you gave it a 9, Harry.
Yeah, keeping it at 9.
Jonathan, a 5?
Yeah, keeping it as a 5.
And I'll be keeping it as well, I think. And so this year, Halo has stayed exactly the same. And now we're going to move on to Silent Hill 2, which is going to be a bit of an interesting one because we don't have a box for Jonathan to give it a score. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him in a bit. Tony, you gave this a 6?
Yeah, I think that is accurate. But it is sort of benefiting from the selective memory thing of like, I wish I could just stomach. I'm remembering like the good moments from it, but also like I just can't stomach being like unsettled or on edge ever. So I hate horror games and films, which is kind of a shame because I think there's a lot of good in Silent Hill 2, but I'll stick with the 6.
Harry, you've given this a 9.
Yep, I'm sticking with a 9.
And Jonathan, you can give this film a score, and then you can also talk a little bit as well about how you feel about the game. You don't have to really speak for just a sentence or two if you have a bit more to say that you wouldn't have had the chance to on the podcast before.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have too much to say about it really. I'd score it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a good, solid game. I guess it's got some, I guess, interesting themes. It's kind of going around with interesting storytelling elements, but I don't know, a lot of things that are quite quirky and weird that don't quite do it for me. But no, I think a fairly solid game. Like, did we play it on like the easiest difficulty? So it was just kind of laughable, just sort of walking through a lot of the enemies.
I can't really remember.
I played it on the easiest difficulty, but I was not laughing.
Yeah, Johnny, you also didn't play the game. You just watched Ethan play it.
I took over for moments. I did at least a third, maybe.
And I think I'll probably stay with a 10 because I love this game and it's easily a top 5 for me, I think. So the new score for this is 32, and that'll just be because Jonathan has now given this a score. So it was 25 before, and overall 2001 was 64. So good job, Harry. That was a really good year. Now 2000, this was my penultimate year. I picked again 2 foreign language films that I really enjoy quite a lot. The first one was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Tony, you gave that a 7.
Okay, I will lower that to a 6 because I feel like with the choreography, which is clearly like the big selling point, like I mentioned this, it's like it's so fast paced that if they had done less work and had the film be slower, it would be more followable with, you know, human eyes and human perception to see the flow of combat and actually like understand the throws and kicks and punches. Like it just feels so sad that like you guys could have done less and it would be better, in my opinion. And that's the one thing that has stuck with me. So I'll lower it.
Okay. How about you, Harry? You've given it an 8.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with an 8, I think.
And Jonathan, a 6.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the 6.
And I think to counter Tony, I was already going to increase this by 1. Because I really love this film, and I actually think that the combat is my favourite thing about it. I've never watched a film that has the martial arts sections in any way like that. Now, to be fair, I haven't really seen that many martial arts films, but just seeing the characters move so gracefully and with such elegance, I think just makes the film so beautiful in those scenes that I just haven't seen anywhere else. So I think combined with a story that I thought was pretty great about a mythical sword people are looking for, I just think it's a great movie. So I'm going to go with a 9. So yeah, this film has just stayed the same because Tony went down by 1, but I went up by 1, so it's at 29. And then the other film that I picked, which for me is actually better, I think, is In the Mood for Love. Tony, you gave this a 5.
I wish I could remember anything about this film, but like the only feeling that I'm getting is like just an intense sense of hatred when I hear the name In the Mood for Love. I can't describe it in any ways that someone who is good at being a reviewer would be able to do because I'm a hack. But I still have to lower my score as a 3 to represent the hatred in my heart for In the Mood for Love. For no discernible reason.
Harry, you gave this an 8.
Yeah, I gave it an 8, but I shouldn't have done because I didn't think it was an 8 at the time. I do now think it's an 8. So I predicted that I would grow to like this film more. Actually, watching it, I found quite difficult just to follow what was happening because it was a lot of people saying names of characters you see off screen, and the way it's shot is obviously very interesting. But ultimately, it's a romance that kind of lacks intimacy, and that's the point, that it's meant to show this coldness and emotional distance. And then when there are those like beautiful kind of cracks, they are incredible, and it is one of the best looking films ever as well. And I thought I would watch it again and reevaluate. And I've had multiple occasions where I was going to watch it, and then for whatever reason something happened and it hasn't come up. It could well grow beyond Retcon 2, but we're never doing that. So I'll give it an 8 and leave it there.
Okay. Jonathan, You're at 5?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep it as a 5. This is one of those films where I'll just remember that I've seen it. Like I'll see the title and just be like, "Oh, yeah, I've seen that one. I don't really remember much from it."
And I think I'll stick with a 9 on this one. So it's gone down by a couple of points to 25. It used to be at 27, and overall the year is 54, which it's all right, not too bad. 1999. So Tony, this was your final year, and I think you picked two things that were received really well. I thought overall, the game that you picked was Chrono Trigger, and you gave it an 8.
I'm kind of debating increasing it to a 9, but I don't think I will. I think I would if I played it again, but I think it's ultimately like just a very solid RPG. I love the environments. That's the one thing that stuck with me. The moment where you first go into, I think, the antiquity period, and you're just in this floating skyscape in the overworld map. I don't think more modern RPGs with this sort of move to 3D capture that as well as the fucking 16-bit pixel art does. I want to increase it. My heart's telling me to increase it. But I haven't put in the work, so I won't.
Oh, do it though.
Okay. You know what? I will. I'll predict that in 20 years when I replay Chrono Trigger, I'll be like, yeah, you know, this is a 9 out of 10.
And Harry, you gave this a 9.
I think I'm just trying to make Tony win by increasing all his things, but I'm going to raise it to a 10. It really was. It's probably the thing that I would never have played without the podcast. That because of the podcast, I kind of discovered, along with City of God, I'd say they're probably the two best things I discovered from doing it. And yeah, it's probably the best of JRPG. Honestly, any criticism you can level at the genre of JRPGs, it has it kind of like a workaround for. I just feel like you don't need to grind really. It's got really compelling, short story, memorable cast of characters. Pretty much changes up what it's doing every 2 hours, and is consistently very funny as well. That's like the underrated aspect that I knew nothing about going in. Just how subversive and how meta a lot of the humor was going to be. I absolutely love Chrono Trigger, and will happily replay it again in a couple of years once I've forgotten a lot of the plot.
Great. Jonathan, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick to that.
And I want to lower this, but I don't think I will, because differently to Age of Mythology, I don't think I gave this film enough of a chance that I should have done. And I like to think that one day I will try and properly play the game rather than watch a walkthrough online and then pretend that I had played the game. So I'll keep it as a 4.
cheeky way of playing.
Yeah, very much so. So it has gone up by a couple of points. It's now at 29, pretty decent. And The Iron Giant was the film that you picked. Again, this one went down really well. Tony, great pick. You gave it a 9.
Stick with a 9.
Harry, a 10.
Yeah, stick with a 10. Tony did very well on this episode.
Jonathan, a 9.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with a 9.
And I think I'll stick with a 7 as well. So it's 35, unchanging. Which means overall it's a 64, which, Harry's right, is very good. Very good final episode, Tony. And Jonathan, your last year, you picked Pokemon Yellow as your game. So similar to Silent Hill 2, we have a couple of people, so Tony and I, who didn't really give scores for it. So I think this is now our opportunity to actually, I guess, properly rate the game. Although I know that I definitely won't have much to say. But Tony, we can start off with you. What do you think you'd rate Pokemon Yellow?
If I were to play Pokemon Yellow, I'd probably give it like a 7. I think it's like a refinement on the original implementation of Red and Blue, with a few like neat things thrown in, and definitely the bones of Pokemon, which are expanded on and fucked around with in every later iteration, are pretty solid. You know, there's a reason why Pokemon is the biggest franchise in the world, and the games are no small part of that. It's fun. It's fun catching moments.
And Harry, you gave this game a 6?
Yeah, I'm gonna raise it to a 7. I'm gonna disagree with Tony that I actually think it's slightly worse than Red and Blue.
It's
I think the
interesting.
tweaks the yellow make aren't as good. I don't want to get into like detail too much, but yeah, I think it's just like a really like it's a Pokemon game, and they're all for better or worse kind of the same. So if you like the core loop, you'll enjoy it. And it might just be because I'm playing Pokemon like as we're speaking, but I'm like, yeah, I think it's a 7.
Okay, cool. And Jonathan, you gave this a 6.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with a 6. I think that, again, the Pokemon bones are strong, but I think this is one where it's still kind of finding a bit more what it is. Admittedly, for me, because I more got into it when it was Gen 3, to me, Gen 3 is what peak Pokemon is. Then it was downhill since then. But anyway, yeah, I think a 6 for this.
I felt a bit left out when we did Pokemon Yellow because I know that you three have a past and a history with this series that I never had.
And a future.
Yeah, exactly. So I never really got in on Pokemon when I was younger, and I think that really reflects how I felt about playing the game. I didn't enjoy it. I think without a shadow of a doubt, my least favorite thing was just random encounters. And the turn-based combat. I don't like turn-based combat. I think it's so slow and repetitive, and I don't feel any thrill or any sense of action playing it. And also the idea of just being able to walk around minding my own business. I like the idea of being able to choose what enemies I want to fight. But then from the part of Pokemon Yellow that I did play, not having that opportunity, just being forced to challenge whoever I wanted. And yeah, sure, I know you can choose to flee if you want, but just having to sit through that animation of going into the fight each time, it was just I kind of wanted to just get on with the game. And then knowing that I guess the gameplay is that same loop of you go around fighting Pokemon and then you have a gym and then you have another gym and then you got another gym after that and then it's that same stack upon a stack of a story. And I think overall just with some games I don't mind it as much, but I guess a lack of a really strong narrative really hurts this game for me. So I think I'll give it a 3. I'll admit that I didn't give it as much of a chance as I could have done, but at the time it wasn't what I felt like playing, and I didn't think I would get into it. If anything, I probably would have not enjoyed it less. Sorry, I would have enjoyed it less going on. So it was a good thing I stopped when I did.
So Ethan, the things in Pokemon Yellow that you don't like are the fact that you're forced into random battles. You know, the slowness of the turn-based combat and the lack of a really strong narrative carrying you through. You should play Chrono Trigger, you know, because it fixes all three of these elements.
Yeah, I think Chrono Trigger for me, it was I didn't feel the character of the people that you were with and the person that you played as. I didn't like the length of the game. I didn't think the world had variety for sure, and the different eras of history that you could go to seemed fun and interesting. But I think overall, yeah, it wasn't it wasn't really for me. And yeah, it was also just aesthetically. I mean, these two games, yeah, they're old now. I know that's a big part of it, and I don't think it really bothers either of you three particularly much. But that whole kind of bit rate aesthetic with older games, it's just not something I'm too keen on. I mean, I love Last of Us 2, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you got to be able to feel the tears of the graphic designers and artists that like worked overtime. It's like,
Yeah.
fuck, I need to model Ellie's paws again. No.
I know it's unfair to compare a game that came out last year or the year before that with a game from 1998, but you know what I'm like. I compare One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to Eromanga Sensei. I mean, it's just what I do, really. I can't help it.
That's, you know, understandable from a certain point of view.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, Pokemon Yellow maybe couldn't have had quite the leap that would have been good. It definitely went up, obviously, because there were 2 new ratings added to it. So it went from 12 to 23, which isn't amazing, but we've done worse on the podcast. But I'll tell you what, Jonathan, the film that you picked was definitely one of the best ones that we've done. Tony, you gave it a 7. It was The Truman Show.
I'll increase that to an 8. I think it's very funny. I forget the name of the main lead actor, but Yes Man Guy, what's his name?
Yes, man.
I've literally forgotten it.
Jim Carrey.
I was about to say Will Ferrell. Oh man, I would have looked so foolish. I'm just so bad at names.
Oh, God.
If only.
Oh, Harry, come
yeah,
on.
it's funny. He's a great actor. And The Truman Show, despite its kind of really psychological horror setup, what if your entire life was fake? It's really upbeat. It's like, yeah, it's kind of having fun with it. So yeah, I'll increase it.
Great. Harry, you gave it a 9.
Yep, sticking to a 9.
Cool. Jonathan, also a 9.
Yeah, I think I'm going to increase it to a 10, actually. I think I really like this film. Both the fun that it has and also some of the themes that are kind of going throughout, I think are very good. Yeah, this was one of the success stories of a film I hadn't seen before I picked it. Much better than Inglourious Bastards.
Jonathan, I think you must just be the biggest fan of Jim Carrey's dramatic work out there. That's what I've learned.
I think I'm a fan of 2 of his films.
That's a pattern.
Yeah, you should have watched Yes Man with us. I think you'd have had a good time.
Yeah, it's just always funny to me when people are just like, oh, Jim Carrey, he's always weird in his films. And like the 2 films I think of when I think Jim Carrey are The Truman Show and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I was like, no, he's pretty decent in those. Then I'm like, oh yeah, no, the other films he's in. Ah, yeah.
Yeah, a bit like Adam Sandler, right?
I kind of see the yes man in Truman Show, like even though the tone is like slightly different, if like one is very like upbeat and obviously comedy all the time, whereas Truman Show has like a much kind of insidious nature to it. I think his facial acting is kind of like the same. He's kind of like smugly funny, and but not in like a annoying DreamWorks way. He's good.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm gonna stick with the 9, I think, on this one. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with everything that you guys have said about the Truman Show, and think about what this guy has achieved with a couple of films that have a bit more of a dramatic edge to them than, I guess, something that's sort of wacky, like Dumb and Dumber or Ace Ventura. And just shows how much of a range this guy has. And even the Truman Show, when he still has that kind of upbeat cheerfulness to his character and that kind of goofiness that he does so well, and because he's such he really is one of the great physical comedians of I think of his generation. But when I think of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I mean, he's really not going for that at all. He's such a downbeat, reserved performance, and I think he's underutilized. To be honest, in Hollywood, I really wish that, like Adam Sandler has had since Punch Drunk Love, he's kind of gotten 1 film, maybe 2. I can't really think of another one apart from Uncut Gems right now, where he's had that ability to, I guess, express himself in a role that isn't just him kind of going around making fart jokes for an hour and a half. I wish Jim Carrey had more of an opportunity to do the same, and I hope he does in the future, because I think we're all the better off for it. But for the now, I will keep it as a 9. So this film has done better. It's gone up by 2 points, so it's now on 36 when it was originally 34. So overall 59, which is pretty decent for a final year, Johnny. So good job. Now, Harry, your last year was also another really good one. You went for Castlevania as your game. Now, Tony, I think for this one you're going to have to give a score for it as well. You ended up playing it, right?
I did, but I played the phone call, and I hated the touch controls, and I could not get an emulator to work. So, but I'm soul bound by the Witcher's curse to put a number into the spreadsheet. So I'm gonna be like, you know what, Castlevania is basically like the progenitor of the Metroidvania. That's half the name. Idea of like, what if there was a map where you can go and you find like a cool thing that lets you find more of the map, and I'm like, that's a cool idea. I'll give it, because it has the idea. I'll give it a 7.
I'm glad there's no Retcon 3 because that would definitely go down.
Harry, you gave this an 8.
I'm going to stick with an 8.
And Jonathan, a 7?
I'm gonna stick with a 7.
I'm going to increase this to a 9, I think. I've since played this game, I think once more, might even be twice, I don't know. It's a short game. And not short in the sense that Limbo is, where you can be done in an evening. I mean, this game will take a few sit-throughs, but the last time I played it, I did the whole inverted castle, and not only did I love the idea of just having the same map and then turning it upside down and then just saying, yeah, here's the second half of the game.
But hiding it behind some like obscure bullshit.
Yeah, I know. And when I heard that idea, I thought it was the cheapest thing I'd ever heard in my entire life. I would hate that, but it layers that map with some really fun bosses, a couple of new weapons that basically make you invincible and make the game so beatable.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
That's that shield.
yeah, it's really incredible. But just it's the reason I'm giving this a 9 is because there was a time in the third year of uni when I was kind of bored. I wanted to play a game, and I looked through the games I had on my 360. And even though I think I'd played Castlevania twice at some point, I just felt so drawn to just downloading it, booting it up, and playing it again because it's so fun. And for a game that's even older than Age of Mythology, sorry, that's even older than Chrono Trigger and Pokemon Yellow. I guess because of the console it was released on at the time, it probably looks it looks better. I think it's just a game that I have so much fun playing. I love exploring the castle. The soundtrack is excellent. I mean, there's so many different moods that you feel all the way throughout the castle, depending on where you are. And the soundtrack, I think, really punctuates that. And overall, I just think it's a really, really fun game. If you can get past that fucking staircase, then you'll have a great time.
God, Ethan, Ethan's almost talked me to upping this. I'll say a really like vivid memory I have was in first year when Ethan was about halfway through my Metroidvania that invented the genre, and then he started playing Hollow Knight, which is like the fact he started playing it like 3 years ago just says it all about this podcast, isn't it? But Hollow Knight, which is Tony is going to pick, which came out 20 years after and was like not playing Castlevania because he was playing Hollow Knight, and I was like getting annoyed at him. And how like I've completely shifted now from being like Hollow Knight is one of the best games ever, and Castlevania is just an 8. But yeah, that's what happens when you spend like 5 years doing a podcast.
Yeah, but Tony is so spot on. I mean, a game where you find an object and it lets you just unlock more of a map and you could just explore it. And I guess depending on where the plot is at that moment.
Especially when you see a thing that's like, oh, I can't get there now, but then you find something later and you're like, it makes you think like, I bet this lets me go there from ages ago. That's cool.
Yeah, and because it was one of the first to do it, you do have to kind of give it that credit.
Yeah, I'll give it the credit, even though I didn't play the game and hate touch controls.
Yeah, so that's obviously gone up by a fair amount of points just because Tony has given it a 7. So it was 23. It's now at 31. It's a part of the 30 plus club. It's good for me. I obviously like that. And Harry, you also picked another really good film. You picked Starship Troopers. Tony, you gave this a 7.
I think I'll increase that to an 8. I think I find it so rare that something I watch actually has like a coherent political understanding of anything ever. Like I played like Disco Elysium recently, and I'm like, oh my god, this game actually has like a political lens to it that exists. That's crazy. Nothing does that. Starship Troopers has it. That's why it's good. And also, some aliens are killed in it. Lol.
Fair enough. How about you, Harry? You giving it an 8?
Yeah, I think an 8 is the correct. As much as I'd love to give it higher than an 8, it is very long, and there is a lot of just watching the film Starship Troopers rather than thinking about the concept of making the film Starship Troopers, if that makes sense. So I'll give it an 8, but I loved our discussion that we had on it.
Yeah, it was fun. Jonathan, you gave it the highest score. You gave it a 9. Is that changing?
No, I think I'm going to stick with a 9.
And I think I'll stick with an 8 as well. So that's gone up by because of Tony. So it's now on 33 when it was 32. Overall 64 for your final episode, Harry. That is that's pretty damn good. So well done there. And then it comes to the last episode that we did of the main series. So it was 20 years going back from 2016. So we're finally at 1996, and for the last episode, I picked two of my favorite films. First one is Seven. So Tony, you gave this a 3.
Ethan, genuinely, I have no recollection of Seven. I am convinced.
This is like a year ago you watched.
I'm convinced I've never seen this film.
This is so weird because you would normally have a really good memory of
Yeah, like normally I'm
10 years ago, and you watched this a year ago.
normally I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen Aliens from like that one time when I was 5, and I walked past a scene going on in the TV room. Seven. I genuinely can't remember a single thing about this film. Oh no! Now I remember. Okay, it's the detective film. Ah, I see. It's right. What's in the box? What's in the box film?
Yeah.
Wait, I thought that what you were trying to say was that you couldn't remember plot points, but you literally couldn't remember what the movie was about. Is that what you were saying?
I literally just remembered. Okay, it's the detective film.
Oh my god.
Ah, yes. Okay. It's coming back to me. Oh god, this film is solidly mediocre. It's solidly bad. I'll stick with the 3.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for getting that cleared up. Harry, giving it an 8.
Yeah, I have given it an 8, and I think I'll keep it as an 8.
And Jonathan with 6.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep with the 6.
And I'm going to stay with a 10 as well. So that's still a consistent 27 from before. And then the film that I did, which, I mean, looks like it did so much better than 7, was Trainspotting. Tony, you gave this an 8, which is, miles better than what you gave 7. Are you going to stick with that?
I remember Trainspotting. I'm like, yeah, the scenes. That film was about drug abuse. It's actually a very good film. I'll stick with that 8.
Okay. And Harry, you've given it a 9.
It's a very high 9, but I think it's going to stay a 9. I almost rewatched it like last week, which might have been the thing that pushed it over the line, but I guess we'll never know. So I'll keep it as a 9.
Sure. And Jonathan, staying with a 10, I presume.
Yeah. Again, this is one of the solid sort of top 4, top 5 films for me.
Yeah, and same with me. So I'll be sticking with a 10. We end with 37, which is again what we had before. No changes there. So that's a 64 overall for my final episode. So that's Retcon 2. Nice. We finally got through it. We got through the main series. Now we just have all the other spin-offs to do.
Which probably add up to more scores than we've actually done it.
No, don't tell me we're gonna have to be like Animedia.
Oh yeah.
We're literally doing it.
Tony, how you feel about 7, where you're like, I don't remember what this film was about. Oh, there were detectives and there was a box. That's how I'm going to feel about most of the things that you picked for Animediate. There was a high school involved.
It does not narrow any of them down. Oh my God. Yeah, it was genuine, like pure mind blank of like, I've never seen this film.
Oh.
Moving on to the spin-offs now. First up, we have Animediate 1, which Tony picked Eromanga Sensei.
Yeah.
Tony, you gave it a 1.
Keep. That deserves that spot.
I also gave it a 1. I'm sticking with that. Johnny, you gave it a 2.
Yeah, I'm sticking with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 2.
Yeah, I'll stick with that too.
Animediate 2, asterisk war.
Asterisk war.
Tony, you gave it a 2.
It is there by right.
I gave it a 3, and I'm going to lower that to a 2. Johnny, can you update as we go?
Yeah, hopefully it won't click too much. Yeah, same here. I gave it a 3. I'm going to lower that to a 2.
Ethan, you gave it a 3.
I'm going to stick with a 3.
Can anyone name anything about that show?
Yeah, it's the one where the Czech Republic doesn't exist anymore.
See, I'm glad that's what you kept. What's the third one?
The third one was Hanoka with Mars of Destruction, which we all rated a 10, so we're not going to touch that. Hanoka, Tony, you gave a 3.
Yeah, I think that fits.
I gave Hanoka a 2, and I think I'm going to lower that to a 1. Johnny, you gave Hanoka a 2.
Yeah, I'm sticking with 2.
Ethan, you gave it a 3.
And I'm going to lower it to a 2.
Interesting.
Animediate 4 was In Another World on my smartphone. Tony, you gave it a 4.
Yeah, I think it deserves a 4.
I gave it a 3. I'm going to stick with a 3. Johnny, you gave it a 3.
Yeah, I'll stick with 3. I think that was when they began to get alright.
Ethan
Not alright, but better.
gave it a 2.
Well, I disagree with Jonathan because I actually thought it was the worst thing we'd done on the podcast at that point and since then as well. So I'll stick with a 2 because I don't believe in giving things a 1, really.
I see.
Animediate 5, Tony breaks with tradition by giving Sword Art Online Abridged an 8.
Yeah.
You going to stick with an 8?
Yeah, Sword Art Online Abridged. Funny. There are new episodes still coming out and they're still good.
Okay, I gave it a 6, and I'm going to lower it to a 5 because it wasn't funny.
Just because you hate YouTube videos, Harry.
Oh yeah, it wasn't an anime. Johnny, you gave it an 8.
I'll go down to a 7, I think.
Oh, fair enough.
Grown apart from it, but still good.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
I'm going to lower it by 2 down to a 6. I don't know what I was thinking when I gave this an 8.
You were just on that Sword Art Online Abridged high.
Must have been.
Animediate 6, we did Ninja Slayer, which we all gave a 10, so we're not going to go back to that. But we also did Devilman Crybaby, which Tony, you gave an 8 to.
I thought I gave it 8 fits. I thought I'd given it a 9 and was going to lower it back to an 8, but turns out I was wrong.
I gave it a 6, and I think I'm going to stick by that. Johnny, you gave it a 1.
Yeah, I maintain that for me, this is the one and only 1 out of 10.
It's amazing.
Ethan, you gave it a 4.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like it could go down to a 3, but I'll stick with Retcon 4 until Retcon 3. I mean, I'll stick with A4 until Retcon 3.
We also did Neo Yokio, which Tony, you gave a 9.
Yeah, it's a banger.
Okay, I gave it an 8, I'll stick with an 8. Johnny, you gave it a 9.
Yeah, I'm sticking with 9.
Ethan, you gave it a 7.
Drop down to a 6.
Ooh. Right, next up we have Symphogear, I believe. The episode that took us the longest to get through. Tony, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, it deserves a 7.
I gave it a 5, which I'm going to lower to a 4. Johnny, you gave it a 4.
Yeah, I'm going to lower that to 3.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
I'm going to lower it to a 3 as well.
That's the biggest drop we'll ever have. Animedia 8, we had Mob Psycho, which you gave an 8, Tony.
Yeah, that fits.
I gave it a 7, which I'm going to stick by. Johnny, you gave it
Yeah,
a 7.
I'm gonna stick with my 7 as well.
Ethan, you gave it a 7.
Drop to a 6.
Up next, we have Bakano, which Tony, you gave a 10 to.
Yeah, I think it deserves a 10. I'm surprised I didn't give it a 9. I broke with my own trend.
I gave it a 9, and I'm going to stick by that. Johnny, you gave it a 10.
I'm gonna stick with that.
And Ethan, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with that. It's solidly and very comfortably the best thing we've done on this section of the podcast up until then.
We also did, me and Tony, did No Game, No Life, which Tony, you gave a 9 to.
Yeah.
And I gave a 4, but I'm going to lower to a 3. And of course, Johnny
Harry,
and Ethan said they'd watch it in time for Retcon 2.
Harry,
I
you're not gamers.
I have since watched it on the toilet all the way through.
Okay, Animediate 10, we had One Punch Man. Tony, you gave it a 10.
Yeah.
You stick by that.
I'll stick by that.
I gave it a 7. I'll stick by that. Johnny, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
God, I don't know. I want to keep it at an 8. I think I'm going to keep it at an 8.
Thank you, Ethan.
You're welcome, Tone.
Final Animediate, Neon Genesis Evangelion. Tony, you gave it a 10 out of 10.
It's the original 10.
It is. I also gave it a 10, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, I'll stick with that, but retroactively, I will raise One Punch Man to a 7.
Fair enough.
Ethan, you gave it a 10.
Oh yeah, definitely sticking with a 10. I think it feels fitting that I should give one thing on this series a 10, and if there is that one thing, then it's definitely that.
the end of Evangelion. Andrew gave a 3, and he's not here, so we'll raise that to a 10 for him. Tony, you gave it a 10.
Yeah.
I gave it a 10. Johnny, you gave it a 3.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
Yeah, it's a very high 9, but a 9 nonetheless.
On to music, mates. I can't wait to rush through this with no discussion. Right. First episode, Violator, Depeche Mode. Tony, you gave it an 8.
Keep.
Yes, good man.
I gave it a 7, and I'm going to keep that. Johnny, you gave it a 5.
I'm gonna keep that.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, stick with an 8.
1991, we had Nevermind by Nirvana. Tony, you gave it a 7.
Give it like a 5. Actually, yeah, I'll give it
Sacrilege.
like a 4. Give it like a 3.
Just gotta keep changing.
I don't even like
score.
it
What do you
at
think
all.
about that?
It's a 3.
Jesus, you took yourself out of a 5 there.
I know, you say you appreciated aspects of the album at the time.
That film,
Right.
fucking, it's not a film, it's an album. But I don't
At
like
least
it
it's
at
still
all.
in the 30 plus club at this point.
I gave it a 9, which I'm sticking with. Johnny, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'm sticking with that.
Yes, good man.
Ethan, you gave it a 10.
Yeah, because I'm sticking with a fucking 10.
1991, we also had Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Tony, you gave this a 9.
Yeah, it deserves a 9. It's actually nearly perfect. It's amazing. It's so good and funny.
Okay, I gave this a 7, and I'm going to lower it to a 4 because I do not like this album at all. I don't know what I was thinking. Johnny, you gave it a 5.
I'm gonna have to stick with that just because I have like no memories.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
Yeah, definitely still a 9. It's up there as one of the best.
1992, we had Rage Against the Machine by Rage Against the Machine. Tony, you gave this a 10.
It deserves a 10. It's powerful.
I gave this an 8. I'm going to up it to a 9, I think.
Yes.
Johnny, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'll keep it at an 8.
Ethan, you gave this a 10.
Definitely.
Okay, next up we have The Last Splash by The Breeders. Tony, you gave this a 6.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I gave it a 7. I'm going to lower it to a 6. Johnny, you gave it a 9.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with a 9.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
Lower to a 7.
We also did His and Hers by Pulp. Tony, you gave this a 7.
I'll pass.
I gave it a 6, and I'll also pass. Johnny, you gave it an 8.
I'll also pass.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
Oh, I thought he was going to up it to a 9. I'll keep it as an 8.
My eyes are actually getting quite bad from this now. Then we had Weezer by Weezer. Tony, you gave it a 7.
Oh, it was a 7 until I realised that Weezer's become a huge meme. And now I'm like, I want it to be a 10. But it's actually not that good. It's a 7.
I gave it an 8, which I'll stick with. Johnny, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
Drop it to an 8.
We also did... Oh, this was the mobile phone episode. Yeah, I remember that.
Yes.
This is Super Unknown by Soundgarden. Tony, you gave it an 8.
That sounds about right.
I gave it a 5, which I'm going to lower to a 3.
I knew you were going to
Because
do
I
that.
can't remember anything about it apart from Black Hole Sun.
I know you hate
Oh yeah,
that
it's being carried by Black Hole Sun. Okay.
Black Hole
There was also a
Sun.
song about spoons.
Johnny, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. I think.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
Oh, I don't know. It might go down. Keep it at a 9. I might retroactively change it.
Retcon 3. Okay, then we did Music Mates 1970s, in which Ethan picked Rumours by Fleetwood Mac, which Tony, you gave an 8 to.
I think I'll bump that up to a 9.
Good man.
I gave this an 8, and I'm going to bump up to a 10, because it's... I don't know what I was thinking. I think I got my scores the wrong way around this episode. Johnny, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. I think.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
Stick with that.
And then Paranoid by Black Sabbath, Tony, you gave an 8 to.
I'll pass.
I gave a 10, and I'm going to drop it to an 8. I think I just got my scores the wrong way around this month. Johnny, you have a 5 for Paranoid.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep that.
Ethan, you had a 9.
Drop it to an 8.
Then we had Garbage by Garbage. Tony, you gave Garbage a 10.
I think that deserves a 10.
I
Self-titled
gave it
albums, the way to go.
I gave it a 6, and I'm going to raise that to a 7. Johnny, you gave it a 10.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it at that 10.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
Yeah, me too.
Then we had Post by Bjork. Tony, you gave this a 7.
I mean, it was not as good as the Christmas album. It was her first work, which I can't believe I listened to all of. Give it a
It
6.
was your own doing, Tony.
Give it a 6. Look, it happened by accident. You said it was Bjork's first work. That's what I was looking for.
know,
That was the district the informational key that I was
Tony,
going off
I
of.
knew Bjork's career well enough at that point to know it wasn't even her first album from when she rebranded herself as Bjork. Because that would have been debut. This was her second album.
Whoops. Okay.
I would never have said that.
Whoops. Never mind then. Maybe it was just the first Google result for Bjork.
So Tony, you're lowering it to a 6.
Yes.
Okay. I gave it a 10, and I think I'm going to lower it to a 9.
Oh.
I gave too many 10s there. Johnny, you gave it a 2.
I think if I did listen back to it, I'd probably enjoy it a bit more now. But I don't think I know enough to actually change it, so I'll stick with the
That's
2.
Ethan, you gave it a 10.
Yeah, sticking with that.
Okay, next up we had Music Mates 96, in which we listened to Beethoven's 5th Opus. Tony, you gave Beethoven's 5th Opus a 7 out of 10. You stick by that score.
It's kind of mid. I've overrated. That cello player was not putting in work. No, I'm kidding. They're obviously massively talented. Yeah, that fits. That tracks.
I gave it a 6, and I'm going to lower Beethoven to a 5. Not quite as good as Garbage. Johnny, you also gave it a 6.
I'll have to keep with the 6, I think.
Ethan, you gave Beethoven an 8.
I dropped to a 6.
Oh, God. You listen to some Mozart, maybe. Right, 1997, we have OK Computer by Radiohead. Tony, you gave this an 8.
I'll pass. I don't remember anything about it.
I gave it a 10, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it an 8.
Which I'll also stick by.
Ethan, you gave it a 10.
I will stick by that.
Then we had Mezzanine by Massive Attack, which you gave a 7, Tony.
Yeah, that fits. That fits.
I also gave it a 7, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, I'll stick by that.
And Ethan, you gave it a 9.
Dropped to an 8. I must have been fucking high when I gave that 9 out.
Then, 1999, we end with Significant Other
Christ.
by The Biscuit. Tony, you gave The Biscuit a 7.
Okay, I know I've forgotten a lot of other ones, but this one I've forgotten so hard that I have to lower it to like a 5. It couldn't have been good or bad.
Okay, I gave it a 4, and I think I'm going to lower that to a 3. Johnny, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, I'll stick with that, I think. I enjoyed that, like, before this, I barely heard of him or seen anything about him, and then just for, like, the next month afterwards, everything I saw was about Limp Bizkit. I don't know what happened. I think I got cursed.
Ethan, you gave it a 4.
Yeah, stick with that.
That is one of my favourite podcast episodes we ever did, by the way.
Good.
It's very funny. Then was the final Music Mates, in which Ethan picked... they're the wrong way round, but we'll do them backwards. Because the Internet by Childish Gambino, which Tony, you gave a 7 to.
I think that's correct.
I also gave it a 7, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 10.
Yeah, I'll stay with that.
And then we did Mothership Disc 1, which Tony, you gave a 7 to.
Yeah, keep.
I gave a 9 to, and I'm going to raise that to a 10. Johnny, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 10.
Yeah, me too. I'll stay with it.
Now, on to Quad Trilogy. You remember doing this, guys?
No.
Okay, Tony, you gave A Fistful of Dollars an 8 out of 10.
I'll give it a 7.
I gave it a 7, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
I'm gonna drop it to a 7.
You got a Looper situation.
We do.
It's the new Looper.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Tony, you gave it a 9.
Yeah, I'll keep it as a 9. It's a bold play, but yeah.
Okay, I gave it a 9, and I'm going to keep it as a 9.
You just had to double check his letterbox
I
while
did.
doing that. Got his
Johnny,
phone out just to check.
Johnny, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'll stick with an 8.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
I'll stay with that 9.
The Godfather. Tony, I remember the episode, the theme we went with is it better than Tower Heist? Tony, you gave it a 5.
Yeah, I think it deserves a 5.
I gave it a 9, and I'm going to raise that to a 10. Johnny, you gave it a 4.
Yeah, I'll stick with 4.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
Oh, is it a 10? I'll stay with a 9 for now.
Fellowship of the Ring. Tony, you gave it a 9.
Yeah, yeah.
I gave it a 9, and I'm going to stick with that. Johnny, you gave it a 9.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
I'm gonna drop it down to an 8. I don't really like these films as much for some reason. In retrospect, I think it will be a similar trend with the other ones as well.
For a few dollars more, Tony, you gave it a 7.
I'll give it a 6.
I gave it an 8, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 10.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Temple of Doom, Tony, you gave a 5.
I'll lower that to a 4.
I gave it a 6, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 4.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 6.
Bring it up to a 7.
Clearly not a lover of the British Empire.
I am, yeah. Can't get enough of them.
Tony, you gave The Godfather Part 2 a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, 6 sounds accurate.
I gave it a 10, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 4.
Yeah, I'll stick by that.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
Is another case where it's on the precipice, but it's gonna stay as a 9, I'm afraid. Even though I really wish it was in the 30 club.
Okay. The Two Towers, Tony, you gave an 8.
Yeah, 8. 8's good.
I gave it a 9. I'll stick by that. Johnny, you gave it a 10.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
10 out of 10 for the middle one. Drop it to a 7.
Okay. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Tony, you gave it 6.
Is that the last one in the trilogy?
It is.
Ecstasy of Gold is a good song, but I'll keep it as a 6.
I gave it a 9, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 10.
Mm-hmm.
The Last Crusade, Tony, you gave an 8.
Yeah, 8 sounds good.
I gave a 10, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave a 9.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave a 9.
Yeah, definitely.
The Godfather Part 3, Tony, you gave a 7.
I'll lower that to a 6.
I gave it a 6. I'm going to raise that to a 7. Johnny, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, keep it at a 7, I guess.
The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, Tony, you gave a 9.
Yeah, 9 fits.
I also gave it a 9, which I'll stick with. Johnny gave it a 10.
Yeah, 10.
Oh, he is a madman.
And Ethan gave it a 9.
Yeah, drop to an 8.
Alright.
It's really like that trilogy, Ethan.
Now,
you do.
we're almost done. Star Wars. The Phantom Menace, Tony, you gave a 2 out of 10.
Did we do all of Star Wars?
Yeah, we did. The Phantom Menace, 2 out of 10.
You know, 2, yeah.
Okay, I gave The Phantom Menace a 3, which I'm going to raise to a 4. Johnny, you gave it a 3.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 3.
Oh, drop it to a 2.
Attack of the Clones, Tony, you gave a 3.
I'll lower that to a 2.
I gave it a 2, and I'm going to lower that to a 1. Johnny, you gave it a 4.
I'm going to raise it to a 5.
Ethan, you gave it a 3.
Oh my god, I so desperately want to drop it down to a 1 so it could be in the 10 minus club. But I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to put it as a 2 instead.
Revenge of the Sith, Tony, you gave a 5.
I have half a mind to lower it to a 4. which I will do, is a 4.
I gave it a 5. I'm going to raise it to a 6.
Equilibrium.
Johnny, you gave it a 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna raise it to a 5.
Ethan, you gave it a 4.
Yeah, keep it there.
Solo, remember this film? Tony, you gave it a 6.
I didn't remember the film. I gave it a 4. I don't even hate it, but I have to give it a 4 because I don't know. It's just so forgettable and kind of bad in parts.
That's why I give it a 5, because it just is a 5. It's just like, it's nothing. Yeah, it's a 5. Johnny, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that.
Likes
It's
it
at least
more than
good.
A New Hope.
Ethan, you gave it a 6. Remember, you didn't actually speak on this episode of the Mediate podcast.
Yeah, I do. It's a 5.
Haven't even
Rogue
seen
One,
the film.
Tony.
Rogue One is good.
You gave an 8.
8, it deserves an 8. Honestly, one of the best Star Wars films.
I gave it a 7, which I stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I guess keep it there.
A New Hope. Tony, you gave a 9.
Yeah, 7, 9.
I gave it a 9. I'm going to raise that to a 10.
Do I raise it to a 10?
Johnny, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
stick with the
I'm
7.
What's better, Solo or
I'm also gonna slide in and increase it to a 10. I'm gonna not pussyfoot around.
Okay,
Hang on a second, you just asked Jonathan
Sorry.
a question.
Johnny, what's better, A New Hope or Solo?
They're on a similar shelf.
Okay, Ethan, A New Hope, 9 out of 10.
Yeah, increase it to a 10, definitely. Brilliant film.
Okay, The Empire Strikes Back. Tony, you've given a 9.
I'll also increase this one to a 10. Might as well. Might as well.
Oh, 39 out of 40.
Okay, I'm also going to stick to a 10. I'm going to jump over Johnny and go to Ethan. Ethan, you gave it a 10.
Yeah, staying with a 10, definitely.
Jonathan, it comes down to you now. Empire Strikes Back. You have a 9.
You could free us from the curse.
Oh my god!
Oh my
Done
God, it's a
silently,
40.
it is a 10.
There we go.
It's
You've
happened.
done it.
It's happened.
It's a
We can stop.
40.
We can stop here, right now.
Our torment has ended.
What did Portal 2 get? Was that a 38? Yeah, because Ethan lowered it. Damn. Anyway, nice.
Free of the
Return the
curse.
Jedi then. Tony, you gave it an 8.
I'll lower that to a 7.
I gave it a 7, which I'm going to raise to an 8. John, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep with the 6.
Ethan, you gave it a 7.
I will stick with that.
The Force Awakens, Tony, you gave an 8.
I'll lower that to a 7.
I gave it a 7, which I stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 6.
Drop it to a 5.
The Last Jedi, Tony, you gave a 9.
Out of spite, I'm gonna increase it to a 10.
Oh.
I gave it an 8, which I'm going to raise to a 9. Johnny, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'm gonna raise this to a 10.
Ethan, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, raise this to a 9. No, I'm joking. Keep it at 6.
Okay, there we go. We're not going to revise our rankings because that would take too long. So the question is now, do we go over IMDb? I think we should, just to get completionist.
Okay.
fine.
We
Yeah,
should also
we're on a good
review
pace.
Keeps this
Star
podcast
Wars
going a bit
Episode
longer.
9.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true. I can review that.
I'd give that a 4. Ethan, you've seen that film?
Yeah, I'd give it a 3 maybe on a good day.
Tony?
I
what would you give
haven't
it?
seen it.
Neither's Ethan. Johnny, what would you give it?
I'll go for a 3. Why not?
Okay, let's review the Ewok movies and the. Okay, IMDb. Ethan, your first pick was Carnage. Tony gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'll stick with. No. I was lower to a 6.
I gave it an 8, which I'm going to lower to a 7. Johnny, you gave it an 8.
I'll lower it to a 7, I think.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
I'll lower it to a 7 as well.
Also, Johnny still, even though the point changes are happening now, it doesn't matter because Johnny still won.
Yeah.
So even if the points, although I don't think they will change enough to win. Tony, you gave In the Loop a 6.
Yeah.
I gave it an 8, which I stick by. Johnny, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'll stick by that.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
I will stick by that.
Johnny picked Silent Running, which you gave an 8, Tony.
Yeah, that's a good film.
I gave it a 6, which I stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 9.
I think I'm going to up it to a 10. I think partially because it is just so nostalgic and just in my head that actually I like it more the longer away from watching it I am.
I'd call you an insane person, but you did also just give Empire Strikes Back a 10.
Yeah,
so
it's
I
the
can't-
full heel turn. He's no longer the
He
villain
is.
of the podcast.
We have to mediate 40. Ethan, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'll stay with that 8.
Tony, you picked Red Line with Funky Boy, which you gave a 9.
I'm going to increase that to the same number that it already is, a 9.
I gave it a 5, which I'm going to raise to a 6.
Oh.
Johnny, you gave it an 8.
I'm going to lower it to a 7.
Funky boy.
Ethan, you gave it a 6.
Oh, I'm lowering it. It just depends on how much I'm lowering it. I would say put it at a 4 for the time being.
There is no retcon 3. This is
Yeah, this is the last
Tony, you
podcast
picked-
we'll ever do.
You gave Akira a 10.
I did?
Yeah, you gave
I
Akira a
will
10.
stay by that. I'll stay by that until the day I die. It's also probably in the top 250 today as well.
Probably. I gave it an 8, which I stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, I'll stick by that.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'll stay with that.
Then it was Rope. Tony, do you remember watching Rope together?
I do.
Yours?
I remember Rope. I remember Rope more than a lot of things that I've forgotten on this podcast.
So you gave Rope a
It
7.
deserves a 7. It's good for an old thing.
I gave it a 7, which I'm going to raise to an 8, I think. Johnny, you gave it a 10.
Yeah, I'm going to lower it to a 9.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
I'll lower it to an 8.
And then the Social Network, which Tony, you gave a 7 to.
Why? I'll give it a 3.
Oh my god.
Wait,
I
seriously?
don't like
I
that
thought it was
film
gonna
at
go
all.
up.
No, actually,
thought it
am
was
I getting
gonna go up,
confused with a
Tony.
different film? I'll give it a
This is the
4. I'll give it a
Facebook
4.
one.
I'll give it a 4.
Well, hang on.
Wait a minute.
Tony, you might be confusing it with a different film.
It's
here.
the one with Facebook.
Facebook, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, it's a film. Yeah, okay, it's too long and it has a lot of bad parts in it. It's a 4.
Okay, I gave it a 10, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'll stick with it.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I love that to a 9. It's a fantastic film.
Then The Graduate, Tony, which you gave a 5.
Oh,
No, The Graduates. That's
Crazy,
the
man.
one where it's like about like plastics.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is
that's
it?
that's the one.
Plastics?
That's one of the lines in the film.
That's
That's,
one of
what
the
you got to
lines in the
invest in.
film.
You got to invest in plastics. I'm gonna lower this too.
don't remember this.
It's the one thing I do remember from the film. I'll lower it to
You don't remember all the Simon and Garfunkel that was in it?
true. I remember listening to that at 1.25 times speed. I'll lower it to a 3.
God.
I gave The Graduate an 8, which is a high 8, but still an 8. Johnny, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
Yeah, definitely stay with that.
A Boys in the Hood. Tony, you gave it a 7.
Yes, that sounds good.
Oh, you gotta up it, man. Come on.
I gave it an 8, which I stick by. Johnny gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'll stick by that.
Ethan gave it a 9.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
And then I picked a Rival, which Tony, you gave a 9 to.
Do I increase it? No, I'll keep it as a 9. It's really good though.
I gave it a 10, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'll stick by that.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
I'll bring it down to a 7.
Then Johnny picked In Bruges, which Tony, you gave an 8.
What was this film about again?
In Bruges, it was like a comedy film with 2 Irish assassins in Bruges.
Oh yeah, I remember this one. This one was good. Yes, I'll keep it as an 8.
I gave it a 9, which I'll stick by. Johnny, you gave it a 10.
Yeah, which I'll stick by.
And Ethan, you gave it an 8.
I'll drop it to a 7.
I love how Tony couldn't remember the film and kept
But he
it at
still
an 8.
gave it an 8.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause
Whereas
I
you know that
Uh,
you've seen the film multiple times and are lowering it.
Yeah.
I just didn't remember the name, but I do remember the film.
Wolf Children, Tony, you gave a 10 out of 10
Yeah, it
to.
deserves a 10. It's a great film.
I gave it a 7, which I'll stick by. Note that could change if I watched it without the creepy dub.
The pervert wolf dad.
The
Yeah.
Italian
Yeah,
dog.
but the Italian, like, oh, my children are the wolves. Johnny, you gave it a 7.
Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Ethan, you gave it a 7.
Oh, it's definitely going down. I'm just trying to figure out if it's a 5 or a 4. I think I'll go with a 5.
Johnny, had Submarine, which Tony gave an 8.
Yeah, Submarine's good.
Is it still an 8?
Yeah.
I gave it an 8, which I'll lower to a 7. Johnny, you gave it a 10.
Yeah, I'll stick by that.
Ethan, you gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'll stick by that as well.
Do the Right Thing. I'm going to check what I gave this.
Oh.
Tony, you gave Do the Right Thing an 8.
Yeah, that was a really good one. I'll just keep that as an 8.
I gave Do the Right Thing a 9, which I'm going to stick by. Johnny, you also gave it a 9.
Yeah, I'll stick
Can we-
by that.
Ethan, you gave it a 9.
I so desperately want to give it a 10 because I think it is that good, but what the fuck? I'll keep it as a 9, but I kind of hate myself for it.
Could we?
Okay, then I picked Synodoche, New York, which Tony, you gave a 6.
Why? I'll give it a 1.
I love how we just realising how polite Tony is.
Yeah, I was like, if I'm honest, I'm gonna seem like a dickhead in this competition.
Tony, you did the same thing with Nevermind, where you gave it a 7 and then you dropped it down so much.
Alright, I gave it a 10, which I will stick by.
Oh.
Johnny, you gave it an 8, did you?
Yeah, I'll stick by that.
And Ethan, you gave it a 9.
I think I'm going to drop it to an 8.
It's crazy stuff. God, that is the biggest jump I think I've ever seen. Okay, Ghazi's Wing, Tony, you gave a 10.
Fuck
Okay,
yeah.
Ghazi's Wing is not a 10, but
Hey, it's Ghazi's Wing!
but it is still good and funny. So my actual rating for it will be like 7 out of 10.
Oh god, this film was so bad!
Yeah, Ghazi's Wing's one of the worst things I've ever seen, and deserves the 1 I gave it. Johnny, you gave it a 3?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll stick with that. There was some fun to be had in it, it's just not for the full runtime.
Ethan, you've given it a 3?
I'm gonna give it the lowest 2 possible on Earth.
What's stopping it from being a 1?
He doesn't believe in
That's
ones.
Ghazi's Wing! I like that line!
Okay.
Ghazi's Wing! You know what?
Your
You're right,
rating
drop
is
it to
actually
a
rubbing me
1.
off of me. Maybe it's actually shit. No, I'll keep it as a 7.
Thanks, Johnny.
YOLO.
It's just the worst thing I've ever seen.
Why did you pick this suddenly?
Ghazi's Wing.
Just thinking about it now. Oh my god.
Alright, that's it then. We're done.
For free.
That's all the spin-offs, right? We didn't do anything else. There wasn't like another rogue one that was thrown in there, was there?
No, I mean there's
Yeah.
no, not that I can think of. In all fairness though, I actually thought LimeDB was so fun, and I genuinely would do that again, just for fun. Not as a podcasting thing, but if all 4 of us ever decided to do a competitive thing again, I think this is the way to go.
It's funny because you had 2 picks left, Ethan. You just decided to pick films about being like black in America in like the 90s,
Yeah, but
80s and 90s.
that's because I was trying to find my favourite films that weren't in the top 250, which at the time there weren't very many of. I just saw these 2 and I thought, yeah, they're great picks. But I also know the kind of themes that all 3 of you enjoy and appeal to you as well. And I know you like films that are about, well, discrimination and the political state of things in the States. So I thought those would be great picks. And they were.
Alright.
You know what
That's it then.
we should do, now that we've earned ourselves so much time by doing this podcast so quickly, is talk about There Will Be Blood again.
Oh my god,
We'll
Tony,
see you next time.
Tony, you being serious?
Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Bye-bye.